Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Corey Yoder of Coriander Quilts, and today we are making block number 6 for the Oh Happy Day Sampler Sew Along. And you can probably tell by looking at my top and the quilt behind me, we are making the Ohio Girl quilt block from the Oh Happy Day book. I love Ohio stars. As an Ohio girl, it's just a quilt block I've always enjoyed. So this is a favorite quilt of mine. And when I saw the shirt, I thought, oh my goodness, if I ever saw a shirt that I needed, this is it. I had to pick it up, and then I thought, well, now I need to wear it for this video today because it is an Ohio Star extravaganza. And if you watch until the end of the video, after I'm done sharing the block tutorial with you, I am going to be showing you a couple more quilts that I have made using Ohio Stars. I just think it's such a fun block. And I have a really easy way of making those quarter square triangles that we need for the Ohio Star block to really simplify the piecing of this block. So this is the pillow that I made in the book. These fabrics are a couple grunge prints and then a print from Cozy Up. And the quilt behind me, the main quilt in the book, that uses fabrics from my Apricot and Ash collection. Now, those fabrics, many of them are very hard to come by. The fabric line, it came out a number of years ago. If you understand how writing and making a book goes, you know that it takes a little bit of time from when we turn our projects in until the time when the book is in shops, which means sometimes the fabric lines are hard to come by. So what I'm going to do over on my blog, thanks to a suggestion from one of you, is recolor this quilt in some collections that are currently available in quilt shops, so you can get an idea of what it would look like in fabric lines other than Apricot and Ash. So you'll want to make sure and take a peek at that. And without further ado, let's take a look at the fabrics that we are going to need for this block. If you turn to page 61 in your Oh Happy Day book, you can see the fabrics that we are going to need for our block. Let me pull this pillow back up here so I can reference it as I'm talking. So my gray print up here is going to be the star print. You need 2 large squares, 1 small square. And then for the border, in my pillow, you can see it here, I am using the yellow stripe for my border. You need 2 small rectangles and 2 large rectangles. Those are listed under brown print on page 61 in your book. And then the remainder of the fabrics are the background fabrics. You are going to need 2 large squares, 4 small squares, 2 small rectangles, and 2 larger rectangles. And those are all of the fabrics that you are going to need for this block. I think if you have not made an Ohio Star block before, you are going to be very surprised with how quickly this is going to sew up. The first thing that we need to do is make half square triangles. I have marked my diagonal line across the back of my 2 larger background squares, and I'm going to pair those with the 2 gray squares, pop over to my sewing machine, and I'm going to make half square triangles. Now the piecing instructions for this block, if you would like to see the written piecing instructions, those begin on page 56 of your Oh Happy Day book. So we are going to go make the half square triangles. Now do not trim these up just yet. You're going to make them, press them, and then I'll show you the next step. Okay, I am back. I have made 4 half square triangles. Everything is pressed towards that darker fabric. And as you can see, I have not trimmed anything. All of those little dog ears are still there, and that's exactly what you should do. No trimming just yet. The next step that we're going to do is pair 2 of our half square triangles together and basically just do the same steps that we did, just as if we would be making more half square triangles. So you will take one of your half square triangles, pair it with another one. I have marked my sewing lines on 2 of my half square triangles already. I marked exactly where I'm sewing. The first half square triangles I did, I just marked the diagonal and then I sewed on either side of that marked diagonal. For these, I marked my sewing lines rather than the diagonal. Some people prefer marking the diagonal and some people prefer marking those sewing lines. So I thought I would show you both options in this video. So those marked sewing lines are running perpendicular to the seam that I initially sewed. And I have placed the 2 half square triangles together, and the seams are nesting beautifully. So now I will take this over to the sewing machine, sew on the 2 sewing lines, and then cut those apart and press to one side. So it's going to feel very much like making more half square triangles. I'm going to do that for both of these pairs, and then I will show you how to trim these down. And here are what your quarter square triangles are going to look like before you have done any trimming on them. And I am now going to show you my favorite way to trim these down. There are lots of different ways that we can trim, and you may even have a favorite way that you like to trim these down. My favorite way to trim these types of units, quarter square triangles especially, is with this June Taylor Perfect Half Square Quarter Square Triangle ruler. You can tell my ruler has gotten a lot of wear over the years. This was probably one of the first specialty rulers that I bought, and it has definitely served me well. Now, like I said, there are different ways to trim these down, so if you have a favorite method, use that method. And you can see the size that you need to trim these to on page 56 in step number 2 of your Oh Happy Day book. But I am going to show you how to trim one of these using this specific ruler. So because of the way the markings are on this ruler, I can just line everything up with my diagonals and find the exact measurement that I need. I trim the left and right, and then I have my spinning mat here. This is not a tool that I use a lot because it doesn't spin as nicely as some other brands, but you may have one that works great for you. And spinning mats are so nice when you're trimming up quarter square triangles or half square triangles. And there we go. Just that easy. We have our trimmed up quarter square triangle unit. And I am going to go ahead and trim the remaining 3 that I need for this block. And then I'm going to lay out the next pieces that we need to sew together. All right, let's take a look at these squares laid out. I have the quarter square triangles laid like so, and then the matching print in the center, and then the 4 background squares. We are going to sew those together. In each row, you're going to press toward the solid squares. So towards the background, towards the center, and then towards the background. The final 2 seams can get pressed away from the center, and you will see all of those pressing instructions listed on page 56 in your book if you need to reference those written instructions. I'm going to sew this portion of the block together, show you what that looks like, and then we are nearly done. So let me get over to my sewing machine and get those sewn together. This is what your Ohio star block will look like after it's sewn together. Let's take a look at that pressing on the back. You can see these last 2 seams are pressed away, and then everything else is just nesting beautifully. The measurement for this block can also be found on page 56, so you can double check your measurement before you sew your next borders on, because that's all we have left to do is sew the borders on. So you're going to take your 2 smaller background rectangles. Those are going to go on the left and right. Your longer background rectangles go on the top and bottom. You're going to press all of these border seams away from the center. Once you have the background borders added, then you'll add your final 4 print borders. The shorter strips will be on the left and right, and then longer strips on the top and bottom. Oops, let's slide you up a little bit. There you go. And again, pressing everything away from the center. I'll sew these on, show you my completed block, and then I do have a couple more quilts that I talked about at the beginning of the video that I want to share with you. So let's get this finished. And we have a completed Ohio Girl quilt block. Just that easy. This will measure 12.5 inches square once it's pieced together with the borders. Let me show you the back of the block. Everything is pressed away from the center when you add those last borders to the block. And so cute. I love the stripe on here. I think that just adds such a nice little touch. All right, So you've made your Ohio Star block. It's easier than you thought that it might be. Maybe you have made them before, but maybe this was the first time you've attempted one. And I have a few more quilt patterns to share with you in case you love Ohio Stars just as much as I do. This one behind me is a super easy take on an Ohio Star. They're nice, big, oversized blocks. This quilt is called Down Home. It finishes at 66 inches square. It's a fat eighth friendly quilt. And I used my Sugar Creek line of fabric for this quilt. I made it a number of years ago, but this is gonna look beautiful in many different fabric lines. If you're still looking for a quick to piece Christmas quilt idea, this would be beautiful in reds and greens for the holidays. And it just comes together really quickly because it's such big pieces. So there's one idea for you. We are gonna take this quilt down and I wanna show you another one. And it's not going to be a quick to finish Ohio Star quilt. Let me show you. Okay, see what I mean? This quilt has a whole bunch of Ohio Stars. There are over 100 Ohio Stars in this quilt. I remember when I was piecing it, after I was done, I counted up how many there were. And it's over 100. I want to say 103, something like that. And I was thinking to myself, if I had known how many Ohio Stars I was going to be making in this quilt, I would have been a little bit daunted to start. But it turns out so pretty. This quilt pattern is my line dried quilt. It's also a fat eighth friendly quilt. And I used my flour mill line of fabric for this quilt. The measurements on this one are 62 by 74. And if you love an Ohio Star, this is the quilt for you. Much like Ohio Girl, it uses some blocks with a little frame and then some blocks without a frame. But then you have just that wide variety of sizes, and it is just a happy, happy quilt. I have both the Down Home pattern that I just showed you, as well as the line dried pattern in PDF format in my Etsy shop. So I will make sure and link to that below in case you want to try your hand at one of these quilts yourself. I think that's it for today. I thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you're loving the Oh Happy Day Sampler Sew Along. I know I have really been enjoying sewing along with you every week. And I'll catch you again here next week for the next video.